Buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends. And of course, all you folks out there who are surviving the deluge. It's like almost, I was looking for two animals of every kind to walk by my house because, man, Sunday was epic, and then today was epic. I mean, it's like, there should be, cats and dogs falling from the sky. That's what it's like out there. It's beautiful. It's blue skies moving into Fairbanks, but down here on Homer, it's on, and of course, winds advisories for the Anchorage hillside and the Seward along the Turnagain Arm and the Denali Borough and the southeast Fairbanks census area, which is down along the eastern Alaska range. High winds, 55 to 60 miles an hour for gusts up there. So, keep it all nailed down and covered with a tarp. Good luck keeping the tarp nailed down with the wind. I mean, I'm just saying it's a constant struggle. It's a constant struggle. Just like Tuesdays. Tuesdays are a constant struggle. It's amazing stuff. Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets joins us this morning to discuss wood ticks, lunatics, and politics. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Nice segue this morning, Michael, from, horrible weather to Tuesday mornings,
I am a poet. What can I say? It is what it is. Brad, as always, we welcome you to the program. Brad Keithley comes in from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets and goes through what he sees as being the top three issues facing us kind of every week. Sometimes we repeat because sometimes issues don't go away. In fact, most of the time issues don't go away. But at least we're informed. An informed electorate is an informed electorate. And so we'll see what goes on from that. Brad, we're going to start off this morning. And boy, I'm kind of looking forward to where we're going with this because there's some really interesting stuff out there. Let's talk first about the potentially troublesome developments with Alaska North Slope oil pricing. We've heard, things going up and down. The war's on, the war's off. The straits are open, the straits are closed. Gas is coming, gas is not. What is up with ANS crude pricing? Let's get things started here.
Well, Michael, on both a weekly basis, a running average of 4 weeks, and on a monthly basis, a running average of 12 months, we keep track of ANS pricing versus Brent pricing versus WTI pricing. Brent is the waterborne price, the world waterborne price. WTI is essentially the internal U.S. price, production from the Midwest, Southwest, and then ANS, of course, is Alaska North Slope, and we keep track of the relationship between those three. And there's something really interesting going on that is going to have, if it continues, it's going to have some implications for the FY27 budget and maybe beyond if it continues. I've got a chart that is going to be an eye test this morning. I don't intend it as an eye test. Please don't try to read this chart on Facebook or YouTube or whatever you're watching on. But what this chart shows is the heavy maroon line is at the top is the ANS price, and then I've got the Brent and the WTI line, or the WTI prices in lines. What's going on that's interesting to me is in the bars. The bars represent the differential between ANS and Brent, and represent, if ANS is higher, the bars are positive. If ANS is lower than Brent, the bars are lower. And the reason I keep track of this is our budgets, the Alaska budgets, are done on Brent. So when you see a projection for the FY27 budget of X price, that's really the projection of Brent. And the reason we use Brent is because there's not that big a difference historically between Brent and ANS. Sometimes ANS is higher, sometimes it's lower, but the differentials, if you look at the left side of the chart, the beginning of that chart, you can see the differentials aren't that big. There you go. For the bulk of the year, the differentials between Brent and ANS have not been that big. ANS has been up a little, but not much. And so when you look at the budget, you can see, all right, we're keeping track with Brent. Brent is different than what was projected in the budget, but at least we're keeping track with Brent. What's happened with the war in Iran is as you would expect initially, ANS spiked. The ANS price is really the U.S. West Coast price, the U.S. West Coast spot price, and the U.S. West Coast is really the tail on the dog of Asia. The Asian price, the Asian Pacific price. And so when Hormuz started, when the closing of the Strait of Hormuz started, all of the supplies that would go from the Strait of Hormuz to Asia, and that's the bulk of them, got closed in, got cut off. And so ANS developed a premium because in the Asian markets, they didn't have access to the Hormuz volumes. They needed additional volumes, and so they started bidding up ANS to supply the Asian markets. In fact, we had 3 tankers, all Exxon tankers, interestingly enough, but we had 3 tankers of ANS that went to Korean and 1 Japanese market in the May-June timeframe. And so that was sort of expected. And what that told you was that during May and June, when those prices were going up, that we were ending up with additional dollars for ANS, additional revenue to the state for ANS, because ANS was selling at a premium to Brent. What's happened since is what's really fascinating to me. And you look at Hormuz being closed over the period of time, and ANS being strong, ANS being at a premium to Brent. And then all of a sudden in July, ANS drops. And it doesn't drop back into its normal relationship to Brent. It drops below Brent. Indeed, it even drops below WTI, which is West Texas Intermediate, which is something that you very rarely see, and usually see it on a day or 2 or 3, as opposed to a sustained period. But what we've seen is ANS drop significantly. On one day, it dropped like $11 in its relationship dropped $11 from where it was to where it went, and it dropped from being a premium to Brent all of a sudden to being a discount to Brent, and it's stuck at that through July. Now, a lot of things are going on in the Asian market. Saudi significantly lowered its official selling price for the volumes it was able to get out and get into Asia. It wanted to hold on to Asian market share, and so it dropped its price. China still hasn't picked up buying, and so there's been a lagging in demand. Because of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, a bunch of additional supplies got pulled into the Asian market. Not just ANS, but a bunch of additional supplies got pulled into the ANS market. And so that increased supply in the Asian market. And then you've had Canadian supplies increase. There's been an expansion of the TMX pipeline, the Trans Mountain pipeline that goes from Alberta over to Vancouver. Surrey, I think, is where the terminus is. And so you've seen additional Canadian loadings into the Asian markets. And so there's a bunch of additional supply going into the Asian markets. But I wouldn't normally think that you would see ANS drop to a discount to Brent. You would see it sort of restore to its balance with Brent. The reason this has some significance to the budget is, again, the budget's done on Brent. So when people normally think about, well, how are we doing relative to the budget? You're thinking about how Brent is doing relative, how Brent actuals are doing relative to the Brent futures that were used in the calculation in the projections that were used in the calculation of the budget. With ANS selling at a Brent, I mean, when ANS was selling above Brent, we were getting a premium, we were getting additional revenues in, we were looking good compared to the budget because we were selling it above the Brent, and Brent was selling it above the projections used in the budget. But now that we're below Brent and sustained below Brent, you're gonna have to at least I'm gonna have to rethink how I think about the budget, because we're not pulling in as much revenues for ANS as we would typically do compared to Brent. We're having a deep discount for ANS compared to Brent. Those bars out to the far right that look like we're recovering, look like we're going above Brent. That's not really what's going on there. Those are averages. That's a 12-month average, a 6-month average, a 3-month average, and a 1-month average for June. And so those are just averages that are showing the impact of the period during which Brent was high. We are actually continuing the discount on Brent through yesterday. I mean, we were still right. The price for ANS yesterday was lower than Brent and lower than WTI. So it's a interesting condition that we're finding on ANS. Usually not what you see for ANS, but it's sustained over a month now. And, some people are suggesting that it's going to stay that way longer term, because with the disruption of Hormuz and all of the changes that went on in the Asian market to deal with the disruption of Hormuz, all of a sudden the Asian market has sucked in these additional supplies that's creating a surplus in the Asian market. And as I say, U.S. West Coast, the spot price on the U.S. West Coast is sort of the tail on the dog of the Asian market. So we're seeing the impact of that flow through to ANS.
Now, July, of course, when it first dipped below here on the chart, that's the first month of the new fiscal year that they planned this whole budget on. And so we're already upside down in that regard. What do you think that this portends for the rest of the year? I mean, especially if it remains underneath not only Brent, but WTI. What does that do for us with the budget that they have projected moving forward? What does that do for us then? Well,
we're currently running slightly over budget because Brent is still elevated. The current price for Brent is still elevated. Well, the current price for ANS is still elevated over what the projected price for Brent was, but we're heading down fast. And it's going to be what I'm really going to be interested in is what happens once we click over to August. We'll click into a new Saudi official sales price for Asia. We'll click into new contracts coming on or new deliveries coming on from various sources. And if this continues into August, then I'm going to start, paying more attention to those who are saying that we've seen a sea change in the way that Asian pricing works. China also is a factor in here. China famously held out during the early days of Hormuz. If China had continued its normal demand in the early days of the Hormuz shutdown, the price would have spiked to $150 because the demand would have been substantial. But what China did was turn on its storage facilities, reduce its demand, not spike prices in that way, and reduced Asian demand in a way that softened the price impact of Hormuz on Asia. So it's going to be interesting, and China has still been fairly low in terms of the purchases it's making of crude. So it's going to be interesting once we get into August and September what happens to this price differential. But if it continues in this direction, we will soon be underwater. Even though the Brent price would tell you we're above water compared to budget, we're going to be underwater because the ANS price is operating at a heavy discount to Brent. So it's going to be interesting as we get into the first quarter of the new year and see what's going on with the ANS Brent differential and then flow that through to what's going on with the budget.
And if the straits and if their states remain closed and this Iranian thing drags out for another 6-8 months, I mean, what are the futures saying on that? I mean, what does this say for us?
Well, right now the futures market is saying that the straits aren't going to remain closed. I mean, the futures market is bouncing up and down depending upon what Trump says on any given day. Basically, I mean, if he says, we're going to have World War II, a World War II bombing raid, a Dresden bombing raid on Iran, then the futures market goes up. When he then announces, no, we're not going to do that he's been talked out of it by the sheikhs in the Middle East, then the futures prices goes down. So that's what's really controlling the futures price. And right now, the futures price is trending down. We're sub 70, I think, over the 5-year period, certainly, but we're getting close to the $70 range, and the projection for the budget is $75. So we're getting close to the $70 range on Brent, and ANS is below even Brent. So we're trending down, but things have changed. It's fascinating what's going on with the ANS Brent differential right now, and whether that is permanent enough or will continue long enough to really do us significant damage on our budget.
Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. The weekly top 3 continues. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, the weekly top 3. Brian said, so Canadians are undercutting us? This aggression will not stand, man. They'll do it politely, though. They'll be like, sorry, but we've got to undercut. Sorry. I mean, those Canadians, they're cutthroat.
Well, the Canadians had a real problem. I mean, they have most of their production is in Alberta, and the only major outlet for that supply was down to the Gulf Coast. And so they were priced off WTI, and WTI was already a discount to Brent. And so the Canadian supplies, because of the transportation differential, the Canadian supplies were not doing too well in terms of price. So several years ago, maybe a decade ago, there was a proposal to expand the capacity from Alberta over to the West Coast. That ran into all sorts of problems, permitting, First Nations, all sorts of issues, and so it was delayed, and the Alberta price was low, but they finally completed it, and they've completed an expansion of it, and so that's bringing a lot of Alberta supplies, and it's really increased the price of Alberta supplies because the netback from the West Coast price is a heck of a lot better for the Alberta supplies than the netback from WTI from the Gulf Coast. And so it's brought a lot of Alberta supplies over to that expansion. Has brought a lot of supplies over to the West Coast. So it's not so much the Canadians saying, oh, we're going to do the Americans in. It's them finding an outlet, them developing an outlet for what essentially were the stranded, shut-in Alberta supplies that couldn't get to the Asian market. Now they're in the Asian market. And a significant share. The second largest supplier to the U.S. West Coast, behind Alaska and barely behind Alaska, is Canada, and so that expansion has not only affected Asian supplies, but it's affected the tail on the dog of Asian supplies, the U.S. West Coast, and is affecting the price on the U.S. West Coast.
And How does that how does that work? So they obviously have American flag tankers that can run back and forth. So they bypass the Jones Act on that, or what?
Yeah, they bypass it because they're coming from a foreign port. They're coming from
Right.
Surrey.
Okay, right. So they're coming out of Canada directly.
Right.
Well,
it used to be the only way you got Canadian supplies into the U.S. was through pipelines,
right.
into the Northwest, and so the supply was limited. But now that they've opened up that access for big volumes to the Canadian West Coast,
yeah,
they're doing a lot bigger business out of Alberta than they used to do.
Well, interesting stuff to say the least. We'll see where that goes. Alberta getting ready to pipeline westward. I think that's what Brad was just talking about. This pipe, they're transiting it from the stranded stuff westward towards Surrey. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, no, they're already doing it, and they're talking about another expansion. I mean, so this has really opened up. It's opened up price because it's no longer the WTI discount. It's opened up price, and the price has had an impact on supply. So they've already taken bids, I think, for the next expansion of the TMX, of the Trans Mountain Express pipeline. So there's going to be more and more Canadian supplies showing up on the Canadian West Coast, which will affect the Asian price, which will affect the U.S. West Coast price. And some suggest, and some suggest we're beginning to see the impact of that. I mean, what these negative differentials are showing is we're beginning to see the impact of what all those Canadian supplies coming to the West Coast are going to do to Asian prices, and then have the backward effect on the U.S. West Coast price,
which again will affect us because they're again tail wagging the dog and all that stuff. All right, well, I would say that's a. I would definitely say that's a problem for Alaska in the future. That's a future us problem, but not too much in the future us problem. Like in the immediate future. All right, well, we'll see where we go from there. My friends from Alberta are very pro oil development. Should look into a generational screwed. Should look into generational. Anyway, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. We're over here complaining about, we got to get off of oil and gas, but down there they're going crazy. Anyway, we'll continue on. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Please like and share, subscribe. There's only 9 of you who've liked the show.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Huh. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay. We're continuing with Brad Keithley for Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. On to number 2. The numbers behind the current worries about Southcentral gas. Brad is going to get down into brass tacks. Don't let your eyes glaze over. This is important stuff, okay? So let's go on it.
Yeah, this is numbers day, for good or for bad. So I've been trying to figure out that I can go back and find news stories from last January and February saying that NSTAR is doing okay, it's going to survive the winter, and from Chugach and others saying, okay, we're okay for the next couple of years, and we don't really need to worry about the next couple of years. And then all of a sudden we get to this winter, and we're having all these warnings and press conferences and all that sort of stuff. So I started going back and looking at numbers to try to figure out what's really going on. And I found a couple of very interesting numbers that I think tell a big part of the story of what's going on. The first one is from CINGSA. CINGSA is the Cook Inlet Natural Gas Storage Area, storage something. And it is NSTAR's storage field, where they take gas that's produced in the summer months and fill storage and have it ready for deliverability for the peaks in the winter months. Cook Inlet production can no longer meet peak demand just from production. You have to store the gas in the summer when there's low demand, and then use that to meet peak demand in the winter. Let's do the other one first, Michael, and then go to this one. So this is CINGSA. This is Cook Inlet Natural Gas Storage, whatever. whatever the A is, and it is NSTAR's storage field. And this got several numbers on here, obviously. It's got injection numbers on the left-hand side. It's got injection and withdrawal numbers, the capacity that NSTAR has, that this storage field has for injections, the capacity it has for withdrawals. And then it has working inventory on the far right-hand side. And working inventory is how much gas is in storage at any given point in time. And you can tell, how prepared NSTAR is for the winter. Really interesting numbers going on here. So when you look at the right-hand side and you look at working inventory, the design capacity and the maximum contracted capacity, which are the same thing, for the storage field is 13 million MCF. That's how much 13 billion. That's how much the storage field can hold. And so what you want as you approach the winter is you want to fill up your storage field and have it full and ready to go when you start hitting winter weather. And in Alaska, we can start hitting winter weather in October. So by August 1, you certainly want a big part of your storage field filled up. If you look at these numbers, the design capacity is 13 billion cubic feet. If you look at the inventory numbers, and the inventory is how much is in there, and then the bottom number is available inventory, how much is yet to go, or how much capacity you have that's not yet filled. You can see that the inventory numbers in SINGSA as of August 2nd is only 6.3 billion, 6.4 billion, 6.386 billion. So 6.4 billion compared to compared to a capacity of 13 billion. Available inventory, that is the amount of the amount of not yet filled capacity in the field, is also 6 billion, 6.6 billion, more than half. More than half of the storage field is not yet filled. And that's, when you're sitting at August 1 and you're looking at the winter ahead and you've only got less than half of your storage filled, you're getting concerned. Because the storage, the amount of gas you got in there determines not only how much you can take out, obviously, how much you got stored and is available, but it also affects the pressure at which you can withdraw. The less gas you have in the field, the less pressure you have in the field, the less gas you can pump out on a peak day. Right. And here's really the worrying number. Even that number is very worrying. The fact you have less than half the storage field filled. But the worrying numbers over on the left-hand side, the injection and withdrawal numbers. And so this is the injection season. This is the season you want to be filling storage. And given that you've only got half storage full, you want to really be going gangbusters. You want to really be filling this thing up. But you look at the injection numbers, the operating capacity of the amount that can be injected on any given day is 206 million cubic feet, 206.320 is the amount you could inject on any given day. The available capacity, that means the additional amount you could be putting in there is 171, which means you're only putting the difference in there. What is that? 35 million a day into the storage field right now. You got a half empty storage field. You're sitting at August 1. You got a half empty storage field. You're only putting 35 million a day compared to a capacity of 206 million a day. You're only putting 35 million a day in there. I can see the reason for the concern. You're not filling storage at anywhere near, the storage isn't filled at anywhere near the level it needs to be. And you're not filling it at anywhere near the rate you need to be filling it to get it to where it needs to be by August 1 or by October 1. Okay, let's go to the other chart. So I started going backwards to try to figure out what's going on here. And this is a very interesting number. This is a chart that the Division of Oil and Gas puts out. It is the capacity of all the storage. Well, it's all of the production sources into the Cook Inlet, all of the levels of production, where the production is coming from, including storage. This is the number from last March. If you look over on the right-hand side the bottom part of the chart, you can see the production profile, the production numbers, that number, the line, you can see the production numbers for the winter of 2025 and 2026. And if you look at the previous years, you see they go up and then they start coming down. They go up and then they start coming down. 2025 went up, plateaued for a bit, didn't ever really reach a peak like previous years had, and then went back down. If you look at 2025 and 2026, there's something really weird going on. The production numbers go up in December and January, and then in February they start coming down, as is typical. And so you would think in February, okay, we're going to be okay. We got through the peak, and we survived. And so when you look at the press releases that are coming out at the time, the Chugach and NSTAR are saying, okay, we're doing fine. But what happened then is you see another peak hit in March, which is not typical at all across this entire range. You don't see a March peak like what we saw last year. And the chart above, the pie chart above that, shows the sources of supply in March for hitting that March peak. The DOR or DNR for its own reasons, Division of Oil and Gas for its own reasons, is dividing production into from pre-2020 wells or 2020 wells and post-2020 wells. That's the blue and the green. The yellow is the production from storage. If you look at this chart for every March going back across time, you very rarely see yellow. If you see yellow at all, it's just a very thin slice of the production for March. But what you see here for March 2026 is a big section, about a quarter of the supply coming out in March is coming from storage. March is usually when you have a typical production period or a typical production cycle, one of two things is going on in March. Either you have a very slight withdrawal in March and you're finding opportunities, frankly, to put gas into storage in March. You've come off your peak and you're continuing production, so you find opportunities to put gas in storage, or you find no use of storage, no withdrawals from storage, and you find all the gas going into peak. And last February, I would think NSTAR would have said to itself, and Chugach and others would have said to ourselves, okay, we got through the peak. Don't worry about it. We can now start refilling storage and we'll be okay by the time we get to August. Instead, what happened in March is they had to use storage to meet that March peak demand. And so it did two things. One, it pulled additional gas out of storage you weren't counting on, and it deprived you of the opportunity, because you were pulling gas out of storage. You needed gas from storage to meet the peak. It deprived you of the ability to start filling storage. So you go from there, and then you go over to what's going on now, and you can see that what happened was we had to hit storage. They had to hit storage hard in March. It delayed the start point. It took storage down further than I would guess they were anticipating. It delayed the point at which they could start refilling storage. And so now we get to August, and we have storage only half full, SINGSA at least, only half full, and not really doing much, not having a lot of gas to go into to help refill SINGSA currently in August. There's another storage field. Hillcorp has a storage field, a commercial storage field that they store third-party volumes in. It's bigger than SINGSA, and so it's got more capacity than SINGSA, but it's not. It's about 3/4 full. It's not full. And if you look at their injection numbers on their field, it's not running much better than the SINGSA numbers are running. So we're going into this coming winter with only, at this point, only half the storage field full, and we're coming in without a real strong stream going into that storage, trying to refill it, getting ready for winter.
And of course, we heard from John Hendricks that they didn't buy any oil or didn't buy any gas in February. And in fact, in his previous interview with us, he said he's kind of capped. He's only been able to sell 100 million, 190 million, up to 190 million MCF per day. And they've had to shut in some of the stuff that they could produce more, but the demand is not there. So again, are they really looking for it, or is there some kind of artificial crisis? Or, I mean, it just raises so many questions, Brad, and especially for those of us that aren't into the intricacies of oil and gas and everything else. It raises a lot of questions that we can't seem to get a lot of answers on.
Yeah, it raises questions. I mean, there is a question. So February is going to be an interesting month. February, if you look back at the chart that had the March peak in it, the Division of Oil and Gas chart, February is starting to slide down. And so if you're in a normal year, you're saying, okay, we're coming off the peak, our December, January winter peak. We're not having a strong February peak. And so, we can ride a little bit, and we'll have the normal summer. You can tell yourself you're going to have the normal summer. You'll fill storage back up, and you'll be fine by October 1st of next year. So I can sort of see some justification for NSTAR not being overly concerned about supplies in February. That March peak, that second peak in March, came as a surprise. I would anticipate came as a surprise to everybody, because we hadn't had March peaks. So all of a sudden you have this March peak. You have to pull from storage in order to meet the March peak. So not only are you not able to fill storage, you've had to pull from storage, and so you're going into summer now in a much more difficult situation. I would think what Sims has said is he anticipated a bunch of Bluecrest volumes from the Bluecrest field down by Anchor Point. He anticipated a bunch of Bluecrest volumes coming in and helping him refill storage over summer, and they haven't shown up. So he's in a situation. I can see the source of the panic now. He's in a situation where he doesn't have storage where it needs to be. He's not filling storage at anywhere near the rate he needs to be filling it in order to get it ready for this coming winter. And he's looking in a winter that, if it's like 2 winters ago, sort of mild, he'll be fine. But if he has a winter like he did last year, where he has a March peak, he's in trouble.
Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. The weekly top 3 continues. We got more coming up. Don't go anywhere. Michael Duke Show, Common Sense, Liberty-Based, Free Thinking Radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Brad, that's what's it. This whole thing kind of again, it kind of cooks me. What got me and what really irritated me in this, and again, there's so many questions. Was this comment from Sims? As you said, Bluecrest plans are not coming to fruition this year. Well, they haven't really been doing any. I mean, it's just, there's a whole lot of nothing coming from Bluecrest. But then Sims is quoted as saying, an Alaska-owned HEX is delivering less than half of what the utility expected, said Sims. And John Hendricks is like, we've delivered 112% of what we were contracted for. And we have more if you want it. Like, you didn't buy any in February, plus we've got more available. What's going on?
Yeah, that's definitely a question. I mean, that's definitely a question to press Sims on, and definitely a question to press Hendricks on. Landfield ran a tweet last night that said that Hendricks is selling to Marathon, the refinery.
He said that yesterday on the show.
For its needs as opposed to NSTAR. And Landfield's close to Sims, and so you can sort of think that Sims has put this in Landfield's ear to publish. So there's definitely an issue going on there. I will say this, with all due respect to John, with all due respect to HEX, they're the tail on the tail. It's not. That's not big volumes. It would every little bit helps.
No, he's only providing 10% of the gas for the utilities. That's what he said it yesterday. He's only providing 10%, but he has more. He has some available. He wants to get up to 20. He said it's there. He said, yes, he's selling to Marathon because he can't sell enough to NSTAR. They delivered 112%, but NSTAR now says he says maybe he spoke off the cuff. I don't know. I mean, there's so many questions here, Brad. That's the thing. It just smells bad. What is going on?
Yeah, and the question, and so you can see that with that storage number, the Syngsa storage number, that is a concern. And so you would think, and given Sims's statements otherwise, you would think that they'd be buying every available cubic foot they could out there to stick into storage to get the storage numbers up, to get it ready for winter. So it's there's definitely a question there, and I don't have the answer to what's going on between those two. But I will say that Hex is sort of the tail on the dog. I mean, even if Hex put full bore, even if Sims bought everything that John had and put John Sims bought everything that John Hendricks had and put it full bore into storage, that's not going to fill storage. It's going to make a marginal difference in filling storage. The real gap in storage, I don't know where it's coming from. Maybe Sims was counting on Blue Crest for a lot. Maybe there's some shortfall in what he was counting on from Hillcorp. Maybe there's some shortfall someplace else. But when you're sitting at half storage in August, especially in Alaska, if you were sitting in Texas, half storage in August, you wouldn't be that concerned about. But if you're sitting at half storage at August in Alaska, and you're not maximizing the inputs, the injection rate into the storage, you've got to be concerned.
You got 8 weeks. You got 8 weeks to get that thing pumped up to 13 billion cubic feet, and you're at 6.5. How do you get there?
Yeah, well, it's a number. I mean, I really hadn't dug into this. I just was sort of flabbergasted by this whole thing last week about the crisis and all this sort of stuff. And at first, I sort of dismissed it as they're just trying to use an excuse to talk about the big line, trying to pressure the Senate. But then I thought, well, I'll just dig into the numbers and see what the numbers say. And then I started digging into the numbers, and you can see where the concern is when you've got storage at that capacity. So it's a problem. When the history is written of this period, where we have failed is not getting the LNG imports up and running. What we've seen is the Cook Inlet fail faster than we thought it was going to fail. And Blue Crest would be an example of that. It didn't come on with those volumes. And so we're seeing the Cook Inlet fail faster than we thought it was going to fail. We don't have the big line. The big line's not coming. If it ever comes, it's not coming for a while. So where we're falling short is not having the LNG import capacity ready to go. And nobody's really talking about what they're going to do to get the LNG capacity ready to go.
Where's the plan? I mean, because NSTAR wants to build their own big standalone import facility at Point Mac or whatever, and Hillcorp's got theirs there at the Marathon plant where they could retrofit it. But who's running the plan? Who's got the plan? Where does it go? Give me a timeline. Nobody knows. Again, we're all waiting, and that's the thing. We're going to bloviate and wait around and sit on our thumbs until the crisis really begins. And then what are we going to do? That's the problem. Then what are we going to do? All right. 8 seconds out. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. The weekly top 3. Let's get to it. Here we go.
Alaskan Talk Radio with a host who actually lives in Alaska. I know! Weird, right? This is The Michael Dukes Show. Starring Michael Dukes.
I know. It's a unique idea. Somehow the host should actually live in the state that he's talking about stuff in. I know that was a jab at somebody. Don't worry about it. They're not here anymore. So it doesn't matter. We're going to continue on. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, the weekly top 3. On to number 3, which I can't. Adam Crum demonstrates why a lot of Republicans are part of the problem and not the solution. I rolled so hard when I was looking at this stuff. Brad, go ahead and hit us with it here. We're running a little late. We've only got about 7 minutes.
All right. So there was an article in the Alaska Beacon this past week. The article was headlined, "Alaska Providers Say Child Care Gap is Growing." And the article focused on the fact that we have more demand for childcare than we have supply. And so the gap between the number of people who want childcare, the number of working families that want childcare, and the availability of childcare, that gap is growing. So, as you would expect, a politician jumped on that. And a few days later, Adam Crum appears on the opinion page of the ADN, the Alaska Daily News, with this opinion piece. "The answers to Alaska's child care problems are within reach," says Adam. And so I thought, okay, well, great. We're going to have a Republican talk about what the solutions to the child care problem are. And I read it, and two things stand out. One is as he articulates the solutions that he advocates for solving this issue. One is to continue to use Alaska's corporate tax structure to allow companies should also allow companies that subsidize or provide childcare to claim those costs. And what he's talking about is the allowance for additional credits against the Alaska corporate income tax for companies that provide childcare. In essence, subsidizing childcare by those companies by reducing their tax bill.
Right.
And the other one in the next paragraph was a grant program. In other words, state spending with accountability requirements, of course, but a grant program to provide money to those institutions that aren't employers, that don't pay corporate income taxes. And so the rest of the world out there that wants to provide childcare, we give them a grant program. We just directly subsidize them with government money. What's not included in Adam Crowden's editorial is where the money's going to come from. The money to replace the corporate taxes that now are going to be not collected because of the credit, and the money that's going to come from to replace the grant program. And what's the marginal source of revenue in this state right now? It's PFD cuts. So what Crum is essentially saying, when you boil down, because he doesn't otherwise talk about where the revenue is going to be to pay for this stuff, what Crum's talking about is increased PFD cuts in terms to replace the corporate taxes that otherwise aren't going to be collected, and to generate the revenue to pay for the grants that he proposes, PFD cuts to pay for the increased childcare that he proposes. So what we're doing, just think about this. What we're doing is we've got to claim that families, high income, medium income, low income families have a need for additional childcare. We're going to pay for it by taxing, through PFD cuts, taxing middle and lower income Alaska families to pay for the childcare, the select childcare for all middle and lower income Alaska families, to pay for the select childcare for the upper income, the middle income, and the lower income families. We're just churning money. We're taking money. He's gonna make one situation work better, childcare, at the expense of making the incomes of a lot of the families who need childcare worse. You're just taking money you're robbing Paul to pay Peter, or Peter to pay Paul, or however that phrase goes. You're just taking money out of the very families that you claim you're helping to pay for a select group of families that need childcare. Not only a select group of middle and lower income families, but also upper income families. You're essentially going to have middle and lower income families subsidize the childcare of upper income families. And so what's the difference between Republicans and Democrats?
Right.
I mean, the Republicans are saying we need to spend more government money on childcare, or the Democrats say we need to spend more government money on this stuff. Adam Crum's saying the same thing. Well, we need to spend more government money on this stuff.
And talk about an expansion of government. He says, on the supply side, Alaska's facility permitting process needs a provider by provider review, with one accountable navigator assigned to walk every applicant through the process. Wow. How many people is that? And how much is that going to, it's astonishing how everybody is looking to government to solve the problem in this regard.
Yeah, Republicans or Democrats. It's always going to be, we got a problem, we'll just spend more government money on it. Or we'll collect less through the corporate tax credit. We'll just spend more money on it. And who's going to pay for that money? Who's going to provide the money? Well, we'll just take more of it out of the pockets of middle and lower income Alaska families. We'll just push them deeper into the economic hole they're already in order to help a select group of them, those who need childcare, including upper income families, in order to help a select group of them to deal with this situation. It's not there's no difference between the Tom Begich position and the Adam Crum position on that issue. If somebody was really concerned about this and wanted to take government money to do it, at least you'd collect it from everybody. You'd look for revenue sources that didn't impact the very people you claim to be helping, that didn't make their economic situation worse. You would look for revenue sources that spread the burden and reduce the burden on middle and lower income Alaska families. But Crum's proposing steps that will increase the burden on middle and lower income Alaska families.
And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing from almost all these candidates at some point or another. There's some program that they can't do without, or something's going. And again, with no plan, or we have these pie in the sky plans with no way of nobody asking, okay, how do we pay for that? Who pays? Right? Yeah. I mean, that's the crisis here. 30 seconds, Brad. Final thoughts.
Well, it's the same thing as the K through 12. I mean, the question always should be who pays. Every editorial should say, I want to spend money and this is how I'm going to pay for it. But the Republicans, like the Democrats, are just out there saying, I'm going to spend money and don't address how they're going to pay for it, leaving open the fact it's going to come from middle and lower income Alaska families through increased PFD cuts.
Well, we're going to see. What are we, 14 days away from the primary? We'll see whose ideas are sellable. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, the weekly top 3. Brad, thanks so much. Folks, we got more coming up. Hour 2 dead ahead, The Michael Duke Show. It's just not one candidate who's worth an absolute shit at this point. I mean, really, when you look at this, I don't see a candidate who just reaches out and grabs me by the throat and says, dude, we got to fix this. It's all perpetuation of the same cycles of pain that we've had so far.
Yeah, Michael, I was reading through. So the Beacon, the Alaska Beacon has published its campaign materials. They interviewed all the candidates, or they sent a questionnaire to all the candidates. All the candidates, both the candidates for governor and the candidates for legislature, as well as I guess the federal candidates, responded to it. And I was looking through the responses of the candidates for governor, and I was hoping to find one that said, we've got to focus on families first, and we've got to restore the economic strength of families. One way to do that is not to tax them as heavily as we have been through PFD cuts. I was looking for a candidate that would start with families and the economic situation faced by middle and lower income Alaska families. Start with families and say, we're going to fix that first. And then from there, we will have a general fix or a general recovery in the economy, because we focused on families and on households first. Not one of the 17. Now, there were a couple of candidates who didn't respond, but not one of those who responded said that. Some of them said, we're going to focus on families. And then they said, by spending more government money on families, like Adam Crum, we're going to focus on families. We're going to spend more government money on them, without addressing where the revenues are going to come from to provide that additional spending. It's a wasteland out there in terms of candidates who are really focusing on the core economic issue important to Alaska families.
No, it's definitely frustrating, and especially when you look at it, personality wise, yeah, there's a couple candidates that I really like, but what is the solution? And nobody's, and of course, I get some pushback on this, because they immediately say, well, they don't want to lay out their full fiscal plan before the primary, because then, because they're delivering bad news and they wouldn't get anywhere in the primary. They can only do that in the general. And I'm like, look, if somebody's not going to buy it in the primary, What makes you think they're going to buy the bad news in the general? Your plan that's going to cause some hardships. There's going to be some austerity measures. There's going to be some other things. What makes you think that they're going to want to buy it in the general if you don't want to sell it to them in the primary? I don't understand the justification here.
Oh, it's the typical government. We'll get to your problem. Don't worry about it. We'll get to your problem. Just hang on. We'll get there. I mean, they're going to say the same thing in the general. Well, I can't say it in the general now because, I got all these other people in the general and I want to win the general, so I can't say it in the general. It's if a candidate isn't willing to step up and articulate a family first, family values campaign, economic campaign in the primary, I don't trust them to show up in the general, and I certainly don't trust them to show up once they're governing. The first candidate I went to be honest, I paged down to get to Shelley Hughes's. I wanted to see if Shelley was evolving her pitch in a way that started to resonate with me, and it's not. I mean, it's basically it's a different way to come into the spending cuts only approach, but it's basically a spending cuts only approach. And we saw with Dunleavy that just doesn't work. I mean, and we got a bigger deficit now. We got a bigger deficit now than we had at Dunleavy's at the beginning of Dunleavy's term. So
yeah,
to think that spending cuts only is going to resolve this is just foolish.
Craig says there's zero chance that our state legislature would agree to any conservative fiscal plan. So what's the point? I mean, I don't know, Craig. What's the point of getting out of bed this morning if it's going to be so bad and doom and gloom? I mean, you can't stop fighting it. But see, that feeds right back into what Brian was saying. He says, what I fear is a much lower than average turnout because of the terrible slate of proffered candidates. The union hacks and lackeys can turn out the few votes necessary to fully control the state. I mean, if everybody feels like Craig and it's like, what difference does it make? Then why bother to show up, Craig?
Yeah, and so I want to show up. I mean, I want to have somebody to vote for, but there isn't anybody to vote for. So, I mean, Brian's point's excellent. I mean, if you don't show up, for some candidate, then those who do show up, the unions and education unions are going to determine the outcome. But who do I vote for? I mean, do I vote for Shelley, notwithstanding the fact she doesn't have a plan that works? It's just it's a very disappointing. It's a very disappointing campaign in that regard.
Fixing the legislative makeup is the only solution, says Craig. We've been trying that, and that's the thing. How do you change out the players where their constituencies are happy with them? Where the Gary Stevens and the Louise Stutes and the Bert Stedmans and the Bill Wilikowski. I mean, most of these people don't have opponents, Craig. They don't even have the Republican Party's not running anybody against Wilikowski, right? Nobody else is going to run against Bert. Nobody, we've tried that. So I don't know, man. I just, yeah, you're right. Would it be an uphill battle with this legislature? Absolutely. But do we just stop trying? I don't know. I'm gonna have to hold my nose and vote for somebody in this junk primary. I wish there were better candidates. That's all I could say. Better plans. But anyway, Brad, thanks for sharing with us and bringing us in and giving us the depression. I appreciate that. It's good. We got to have this kind of conversation, though. We appreciate you coming in, Brad. Thanks for being part of it today.
Michael, as always, thanks for having me.
It's always educational, Brad. Always educational. Thank you so much. All right, Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. That does it for us. We got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com, where they have links to everything, audio-only stream, the podcast, the social media sites, and live around the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station, and a whole bunch of FM translators around the state of Alaska right now. We were just oh man. We were just going through all this stuff with Brad and talking about the different candidates, and there's a lot of doom and gloom going on in here. There's a lot of doom and gloom about what's happening because we don't have, we've got 17 candidates, right, for governor. 17, the one of the largest fields for governor ever, for the primary. And that's the jungle primary where you get to vote for one of those candidates. And then the top four then go on to the ranked choice voting thing, which again, I hope this whole thing stops in the future, but we'll see what happens with that. But the thing is that Brad and myself as well, a lot of us are not super excited about any of these candidates in total. There's a few that, like I said, personality wise, I like Bernadette and Mike Shower. I think they're a strong team. I think they've got, they've got ideas and gusto. I like Dave Bronson and Seth Church. I think they're great people. And I think, they've got some good ideas, but again, not fully fleshed out in the way that I would like to see them. Shelley Hughes and Blake Geddes. I think again, great people. And have done some good work, but again, just nobody is coming forward with a plan that addresses the major problems in the state of Alaska. That is, mostly we have a spending problem that you're not going to be able to just cut your way to success. So you're going to have to find different mechanisms to make this work. Again, we've talked about the fiscal policy working group thing, for all that, that it's a holistic problem, that there's 5 or 6 different things that could be all pulled together and be done. And you'd think that somebody would stand up on that and address that and say, yeah, that's a great idea. Shelley was part of the working group. Mike was an alternate. Mike Shower was an alternate on the working group. You'd think that these guys would be bringing this up more and more. And of course, the first thing you'll hear is, well, but Mike, this is all strategery. There's strategery. They don't want to bring that up before the primary because they want to make it through the primary. So they don't want to bring everybody down and bring the bad news out, because then they wouldn't be able to get past the primary. They'll bring out their big plans when the general is running. And all I can think of is what? If you are afraid of bringing out a true fiscal plan or policy that you think will save the state, if you're afraid to bring it out before the primary because you might not make it through the primary, what makes you think that it would be attractive once you're in the general? I just don't understand it. This state is like a bunch of teenagers with a credit card. We've got no fiscal discipline. We have no idea of where money comes from or how we pay for our bills or anything else. And we definitely don't want to be told what to do. We definitely don't want to be told that we have got to limit our spending because I want it now. That's where we're at, and that's where we've been at for years. I have been talking about the spending problem in the state of Alaska since 1999. Now, to me, that doesn't sound like a whole lot. And then I realize and go back and realize that's 27 years that I've been talking about we have a spending problem in the state of Alaska. And yet that'll be somebody else's problem. That'll be somebody else's problem. That's a problem for future us. Well, the future is now. That's the problem. The future is now. Now, one of the things that Brad brought up was this, ANS price and how ANS price has now slipped under not only Brent, but WTI, which I know is a lot of acronyms and a lot of numbers. And some of you, your eyes glazed over as soon as we started talking about it because, it doesn't make it, but, you only have so much brain power. You can't share it. The bottom line is that that we are basing our budgets off of the IFCOM. We're betting on it's always going to, this is just another example of, well, we'll base it on $75 Brent and hope that it all works out. If the markets go up, great, we've got a windfall. If the markets go down, oh my God, we've got a crisis. And instead, we could have been building our budgets based on a rolling average of what we received over the last 5 years. And we could have done, there's so many different things that we could have done with that. We could have pulled back and reduced the size and scope of government and the spending, a little bit at a time, because let's face it, right now we're $1 billion in the hole, and, cutting $1 billion out of state government all in one fell swoop is not going to be, it won't be palatable to anybody. Right. And then of course you've got, you've got these legislators and these candidates, legislators, gubernatorial candidates, even the federal candidates who are they see no problem with spending more than we take in or overspending over and over and over again because we're too big to fail. We're too big to fail. But the thing is that no, we're not. We could fail. And that's what people seem to forget is that we could fail. The James Hickman is a guy that I follow I've been following him for years. He's an interesting cat. He used to be known as Sovereign Man, but he really lays it out about what is it. I'm just looking. I'm sorry. I'm looking backwards here because he wrote a piece here recently that just made me just scratch my head. Like, we could fix this if we just did a few different things. And where is it? I should have better prepared. This just came to me. This just came to me on the thing. Well, here's an example. Here's one example that of part of our problem with governments and bureaucracies and why they're continuing to why there's a perpetuation. It's a momentum, right? Once government gets involved and once regulatory capture happens and once all this other stuff goes on, it's the impetus of it is nearly impossible to stop. It's like an aircraft carrier. You could turn off the thrust and it just keeps going for, how long? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 miles. I mean, how long before it finally stops? That's the kind of momentum the government has. And on Fridays, he puts out like 4 different things that are just crazy out there. This was an interesting one. The FDA still requires drug information on paper, thanks to a rule from 1962. If you've ever opened a medication box and found a sheet of paper folded down to the size of a postage stamp, that's an inch thick and folded down to the size of a postage stamp that you have to explode and pull out, and it's a 5 by 8 sheet of paper, right? You've done that, right? Printed in type that practically requires a microscope to read, you've experienced a 64-year-old federal mandate in its natural habitat. Drug companies don't produce that by choice. The FDA requires it on paper based on a rule written in 1962. By the FDA's own math, the ritual burns through roughly 90 billion sheets of paper a year. The sheet is the drug's instruction manual for professionals, dosings, warnings, side effects, interactions. It isn't even meant for you. It's meant for doctors and pharmacists, every one of whom already looks that information up on the internet where it's kept current. The FDA proposed the obvious fix back in 2014, 12 years ago, letting manufacturers post the document online instead of printing it. What followed was classic government. 11 straight years of Congress attaching riders to its spending bills, forbidding the switch, followed by this year's bill, which merely encourages it. So Congress needed 6 decades to start reconsidering a paper mandate from JFK's administration, but only one committee vote to go after Tony the Tiger. That was another part where they were going after Tony the Tiger. That's the answer to childhood diabetes, is they're going to ban Tony the Tiger. No cartoon characters on cereals anymore. That's your government. Your government is going to take and they're going to outlaw cartoon characters on anything with sugar in it. No advertising. The folks, do you realize how boned we actually are? I mean, do you and I know that's depressing. And in the last couple of weeks for me personally, as I've been thinking about this and a lot of other things, has really made me think, man, this damn stuff is just depressing sometimes when you look at the state of the state. And quite honestly, look at what Brad was just going over on this whole child care thing. This just child care thing in the state of Alaska, where you've got one of the conservative, I hope you can hear the air quotes, the conservative candidates for governor, Adam Crum, getting up there and telling us that we need to offer more tax breaks and spend more money on government money on child care for people who can't afford it or who are not making the decisions necessary to take. I mean, this is what we're dealing with, where government becomes the answer to every problem, even problems you didn't know you had. That's what's going on. Even problems you didn't know you have. That's where we're at. All right, I got to take a break, and we're going to come back, and I'm going to dive into this childcare thing for just a minute, and I'm sure some of your heads are going to explode, and some of you are just going to hate me because you'd be like, you're a chauvinistic, sexist, whatever. I'm sure that's probably what's coming, so brace yourself, Gertrude. I'm sure that's how you're going to feel. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return in just a moment.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay. I gotta go get some water. I mean, I know. I gotta go get some water because this is just no. I'll be back. Just a moment. Okay, so I will never tell, Terry. Terry says water or vodka. I mean, it's clear. It's clear and cold. That's all I'm saying. All right. So we're going to get into this here in just a second. Brian says, a giant package of solutions looking for problems. What? No problem. We can fix that. I mean, exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what's going on here. Frank says, hunting season is starting in case anyone wants to focus on something that they can control. There you go. Going back through here. They are afraid to govern like Javier Milei. Free markets work. No gusto at all lip service. Yeah, I mean, it would be, wouldn't that be a radical thing, the chainsaw thing? Wouldn't that be a radical thing for an Alaska governor candidate to, I could see the ad now. He gets a chainsaw and he just starts cutting the wood and he's talking about, I'm taking a chainsaw to government and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I mean, he would fail miserably because 57% of the people in the state are employed by government at one level or another. And there's a whole bunch of people that get their money from, there's a whole bunch of people in government who get their money from their paychecks come from government. Secondarily, right? They're not government employees, but they work for companies that are working for government. So, I mean, that would probably fail miserably, but it'd be exciting to see. It would be exciting to see for sure. 100%. Donna Ardwin. Hello, Donna. It's good to see you. Says AK voters should choose a governor, lieutenant governor candidates who have spines. It's the most important quality for an Alaska governor now. I mean, I'm with you. If that's the case, then, we know we've got Bernadette and Mike. I feel like they've got a spine. Dave Bronson, Seth, I feel like they've got a spine. I feel those are probably the two biggest candidates with intestinal fortitude. But where do we go from there? Where do we go from there? All right. Pull that down. We're going to continue here in just a second. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. Let's get to it. Here we go.
Here on the Michael Duke Show, our libertarian talk means that both the elephant and the donkey gets mad at us. Pissing everyone off equally. Mission accomplished. The Michael Duke Show.
Okay. Chris Story is going to be joining us here at the end of the show today for a little bit of positivity, a positivity uplift. That's what we're looking for. But I wanted to come back to, what we're looking at here is a symptom of the problem. Okay. We're looking at a symptom of the problem in the state of Alaska in general. The problem overall, and I would say if we're going to paint with a broad brush and we're going to, is that we have become a dependency state in many, many ways, right? We depend on government, and you could see this in every news article and all this other kind of stuff. The Alaska Beacon's got this article out about childcare, right? So Alaska providers say childcare gap is growing. Providers say they're serving fewer children because state and federal funding are insufficient to cover rising operational costs. So it's not a problem in the market. It's not a problem that they're undercharging or that there's inflation or that there's additional costs or that their prices are too low to cover their costs. It's all because state and federal funding are insufficient to cover rising operational costs. By the way, those operational costs in part driven by a regulatory framework that is probably I mean, it's pretty onerous and costly, right? That's just how it works. According to the data compiled by a nonprofit, I don't know where they got the data or if it's accurate, but I'm going to quote it because it's in the paper here. 55% of Alaska children lack reasonable access to childcare. Over half. In Alaska, 60% of children have all available parents in the workforce. The cost of center-based childcare is almost $12,500 a year per child, and over $11,000 for home-based childcare each year. Okay. And you're like, well, I got to go to work because I got to pay for my childcare. If you've got 2 kids, you're spending $22,000 to $25,000 a year in childcare. Boy, you better have a good job. You better have a good job. Both of you. One of you. I don't care. Again, before I get into my whole rant on this, let me just be clear. I don't care which one of you is the main income provider and one of you decides to stay home. Because I'm going to advocate that one of you stay home. And I don't care which one of you it is. I really don't. I mean, in my world, in my family, I was the breadwinner and my wife stayed home and took care of the kids. Okay. In your home, maybe it's the other way around. And you know what? Good for you. I don't care. But just think about that for a minute. 60% of children have all the available parents in the workforce. So over half have got both parents working. And the cost of childcare per child is $12,000 a kid. $1,000 a month. Just over $1,000 a month if you send him to a center. If you send him to home-based care, it's just under $1,000 a month. So, I mean, you better have a damn good job. Because if you're spending, I mean, even with one kid, if you're spending $12,000 a year on childcare, and then you've got the extra wear and tear on the cars, you've got the extra nights out or food, fast food purchases because you're too tired to cook, or the extra getting your hair did, or extra outfits for work, or extra insurance, or you start racking all that stuff up, and then you realize it also has probably pushed you into a higher tax bracket, and you look at all that. Your job better deliver some serious money to you to be able to justify all that. That's all I'm saying. That's the first part of my rant. The first part of my rant is it really worth it for both of you? And again, I'm not putting genders on anything, whoever you are, is it really make sense for both of you to go work and then farm your kids out to some daycare somewhere at the cost of $12,000 per kid per year? I mean, let alone, I have 5 kids. 5 kids. Now, they all wouldn't have been in daycare at the same time, but 3 of them would have been at one point. I think 2 or 3. 2 of them for sure. Maybe a third one. How would you have, how? So first and foremost, that's my first question. How many of you out there who are, and this is an older audience. We know the talk radio is an older audience. So you probably don't have kids anymore. You probably have grandkids, but you're watching your kids struggle with their kids because your kids are probably the ones that are looking for daycare. And how many of them are doing exactly this, struggling for daycare to basically break even at the end of the year? Oh, maybe they got a few extra bucks. Maybe they got a few extra dollars in the long run. But is it worth farming your kids out for an extra let's just say they bring home an extra, after expenses and everything else, the cost of childcare and additional things and all that. Let's just say they bring home an extra $1,000 a month. Is $12,000 a year worth farming your kids out to somebody else? I'm asking. That's a question for you. But here's what gets me. In this article, of course, again, it said it right there in the subheadline, state and federal funding are insufficient to cover the rising costs. That's what's causing the problem. Not the fact that we are, farming all our kids out to begin with, not the fact that there's a huge amount of government regulation and red tape to make it all through this. And what is the answer from Adam Crum, a homegrown Alaska businessman and conservative leader running for governor? I mean, this guy, I can't even, because his solution is more government. His solution to the problem is a governmental solution, not a free market solution. He touts himself at the end of this article. He's a homegrown Alaskan, a businessman, and a conservative leader running for governor. After playing Big Ten football, he returned home to grow his family business and co-founded a construction company. He later served as Commissioner of Health and Commissioner of Revenue, guiding Alaska through COVID-19. I don't know if you'd want to remind people of that. But, again, he's a conservative leader and businessman. And what's his answer? His answer is more government. His answer is, and in part, he wants to, offer more tax credits, right, to businesses, for businesses to offer childcare, to do that. They could do that without expanding bureaucracy. Okay, well, it's a great idea. Again, that lost revenue that would then come out of that, because for every dollar that you would take away, how are you going to replace that in government? Are you just going to replace it with more PFD cuts? Or is there some other way that you're going to offset that loss of revenue from those taxes? Because, granted, I would much rather have a reduction in revenue and a tax break than I would have an actual spend. But then he goes on to talk about how we need to provide a provider by provider review, and we need to have one accountable navigator assigned to walk every applicant through the process. Here's my question. Why do you have a process? What business is it of the government's to what? If it requires a navigator, if it requires a government employee to walk you through the process of becoming a child care provider, it's too complicated to begin with. You know why they have this process now? You know why the process has grown to such a large extent? Because they're giving you money. That's how they can require you to have the process. This is a chicken and an egg thing, folks. When I was growing up, there was a lot of people who looked after other people's kids during the day if they had to go work. And it was just drop the kids off. It wasn't an official child care. It wasn't we had to have state certified who's-he what's, or we had to, it wasn't all those things. The little retired old lady down the street would watch most of the kids in the neighborhood, or grandma and grandpa would watch the kids, or they do a share where, hey, I don't have to work this day. I can watch all the kids from my friends group, and, oh, okay, then you can watch them next week. And, this is what happens when we get this dependency on government. We allow them to take over our lives, and if they're going to give us money, they can require us to jump through as many hoops as they want. And those hoops get more and more complicated, and those hoops get more and more expensive. And all of a sudden you're like, well, we can't afford it anymore. And now that you're cutting us off, or now that you're not spending as much, or now that we're not getting as much government lucre, we can't keep up with all your requirements. This is the problem. It's none of government's business who I want to put my kids with. If I believe that Susie Q down the street or Joe Bob across town is got the best, maybe they're just, maybe it's somebody from my church who said, hey, we're gonna, we can watch your kids for you, or we're hanging out and we're doing, then none of your damn business what I do with my kids. None of your business who I want to give money to watch my kids. See, the thing is, you can do that if you're not beholden to the government and you're not dependent on their money to make it happen. That's where we've gotten. That's how we've reached this pinnacle, is that we've become so inured to the fact that we should be pulling ourselves up by our own bootstraps. And this goes back to my original rant of this segment, which was, why are both of you working if it's a struggle and 55% of kids don't have access to health care? That was the number, or not health care, but child care. 55% of Alaska children lack reasonable access to child care. Then my question is, why is that? Well, because of lack of money. Well, then you probably don't need to go to work. One of you, because you're spending $12,000 a year. Just think about if you didn't have to spend that money on child care and you could take care of them yourself. One of you works and the other one stays home. Again, I'm not going to gender you. I don't care. I don't care who it is. I mean, this is just madness, folks. Everywhere you turn, some other government official, some other politician, some other do-gooder is doing gooder with your money, with public money, with the state, and they're always going to expand it, and they can never tell you where they're going to get more of it. I can tell you where it's going to come from. It's become of it's because, Scott, I don't even start with Scott's like, well, some people have hurt children, and for some reason, some reasonable background checks are needed to keep predators from exploiting children. Scott, I'm not talking about just dropping your kids off with some no-neck, nobody that you know. Maybe you do a little background research, or maybe you know them or their family members, or, again, that's going to happen anyway. How many times have we seen it? Well, we had all these background checks. Oh, this teacher abused this kid. I thought you had background checks. Oh, this OCS guy? Oh, didn't you see the headline the other day, Scott? This guy worked for OCS, and he was a child predator too. Right? There's no guarantee that you're going to prevent bad things from happening. You can just do your due diligence as best you can. And you know what? We don't need government for all that. I mean, I'm going to go. Yep. Chris Story is going to join us here in a second, and he's going to make me feel all better. I'm sure. It's going to be all better. So there you go. All right. We're going to continue in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Chris Story up next.
Tune in Friday for our weekend entertainment and movie streaming review with our guest critic, Willie Waffle. That's actually his real name. Really? That's his real name? Man, his parents must have hated him. The Michael Duke Show.
Okay. I'm just scrolling backwards here to see what else people have said. Sounds like a supply and demand problem. Our government providing child care is pure socialism. If your whole paycheck goes to child care, why work then? I mean, there are people who are literally doing that. I did a show about this a few years ago. And by a few years ago, I mean like 15 or 20 years ago. And I got a lot of people mad at me because I wasn't clear enough on because they were thinking you just want the women to stay home and be barefoot and pray. That wasn't my point, but that's how they took it. And I mean, some people are still mad at me to this day over that. But yeah, that was the thing. We did the math. If you make X number of money and you got this, and this is how much you spend on childcare, and this is how much you spend on a second or third car, or you spend on additional insurance, or extra haircuts and extra clothes, and the additional evenings of fast food or eating out or buying takeout because you didn't have time to cook, and the extra things, and it got down to it, and it was like, and then pushing you into the next tax bracket, and what would that do? And it was like, these people are selling their children off to daycare, sending them off and shopping them out to daycare for a measly a couple $100 a month or something by the time it was all said and done, for all the extra expenses. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Michael Dwayne says, not to mention how much you pay in income tax to the Fed, like taxed at 24%. So what does that what does that leave for life's necessities? Yeah. No one is having kids today because it costs too much. Big population decline. Yeah. I mean, $12,000 a year. If you got 2 kids, it's 24,000. I mean, who can afford? I mean, you'd have to have a second job just to be able to put them in childcare. Then why not just raise them yourself? Yeah. Taryn says, I agree with your sentiment. Some incomes are so low that they're living right on the edge and have to have that little extra gain by working and having kids in daycare a couple of days a week. Okay. I mean, maybe. There are no conservative candidates for governor. They all have state programs. Yeah. Taryn says, I'm not talking about doing that to afford extras. I'm talking about a budget where there's zero wiggle room after the bare basics. I know people in that situation. Okay. I mean, good. I mean, I okay. There, and I'm not talking about people who maybe have to use daycare every now and then. I'm talking about people who farm them out Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, 7 days a week, 20, 30 days a month. That's what I'm talking about. Taryn said, I would love to stay home and be grandma daycare, but I can't afford to. This from a former homeschool mom. There's going to have to be decisions made in that case, Taryn. I mean, really, there's going to have to be decisions made in those kind of situations. That's where, and I made those decisions. My wife and I made those decisions. We made those decisions early on. And some of them were painful, man. Some of them were very painful. But in the end, it all worked out. Wait, isn't that what you do when you drop your kids off at school? Just drop them off with strangers is what Brian's saying. Yeah, exactly. The wood chipper will solve the problem. Oh, Scott thinks I've got a wedgie in my crack. Get the wedgie out of your crack. Okay. All right. How much free stuff can I promise and not follow through when I get elected? Think of the children. Think of the children. All right, Chris Story is waiting in the wings. I've been flipping my gums here, so let's get him situated and squared away here, and see what he has to say. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, Michael. On top of the world, not on top of my game to spar with you though this morning, man. I'm going to keep it simple and not debate you. You are on fire. You're flaming. Not flaming.
I'm agitated. I am flaming.
There you go. You're on fire.
I'm a man on fire. What's your topic for today, Mr. Story?
The leader within.
The leader within. Okay. All right. I'm all about that. The leader within. Okay. I'm going to put him back. I'm just going to pull back there real quick. We're going to get this done. Chris Story is going to bring us out of the darkness, and bring us in. The leader within. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Please like, subscribe, share, ring the. There's only 20 of you that have liked the show. 19 of you, not even a full 20. I'm disappointed in you all. Just want to say that. Just disappointed.
Today's recipe is the important Alaskan news of the day with a dash of sardonic smile, a pinch of eye twinkle, not that you can see that on the radio, and a touch of acidity. It goes down easier like that. Don't question our recipes. The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we are continuing here. One final segment for today. Chris Story, the man from Homer, he comes in and gives us a little bit of a positivity boost. It talks about positive mental attitude and life coaching. And today he's with us to talk about the leader within. And I want to know what that's about. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Michael. On top of the world, and you voiced my book. You were the narrator of the Millionaire Code, and in it there is a section of that book called "To Honor Your Instincts," and that's what I mean when I say the leader within. I'm sort of, it's a double entendre. Obviously, it's the leader within you, but also you can become a leader within any organization or community or the government. You needn't wait to be elected or selected or appointed or inherit some sort of a mantle or title. But when you think about your inner knowing and as it relates to your instincts and honoring your instincts, I truly believe within each of us is a knowing. And often this instinct will lay dormant until you answer the call or get the call. Now, the question is, will you answer it? Or do you say and second guess, I really don't. I don't have the education. I don't have the background. This isn't my area of expertise. I can see the injustice. I can see something needs to be done. I know that they've asked me to come and speak about this, or I could inject myself here, but I don't. And so often we don't, I think, because again, who are we? And by and large, I think Americans are at once very bold and brave, but we're also, humble. And we're kind of, that's not really my place to interfere with that. But if you answer that call, here's what I promise you. If you answer the call to lead, before you becomes the path, within you becomes the strength. You will start to feel that sense of purpose, and vision gets very sharp. Suddenly, a little bit like the bullets flying around. Was it Nemo, Finding Nemo in the Matrix series? Suddenly everything slows down, and you begin to see what's coming at you, and you see what must be done, and the leader within will take over.
I loved how you mixed up the Matrix and Finding Nemo. I don't know how you do it, man. I just don't know how
They're
you
two
do
great classics.
it. Two great
classic
classics
films.
side by side. That would be a mashup that I would pay money to go see. Finding Nemo and the Matrix together. The leadership we all have leadership qualities, some of us more than others, and some people hone it. Some people scurry away from it. They don't want the responsibility. They don't want to be the leader. But you're talking about not necessarily leading other people per se as it is in your own life, right?
Both, actually, and neither. No, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to sound like a fortune cookie. I'm totally talking about in your own life. I'm talking about the leader that is inside of you, but I'm also talking about within the organization where you may work, for example, or where you find yourself listening to, say, a problem at your city council or at the legislative level, but somebody else will take care of that. There are exactly 100 people, well, 99 if you don't count Mitch McConnell, 100 people that have answered the call and said, I'll go to DC and I'll sit and serve in the Senate at 6-year tranches of time. And they're not special. No offense to any senators that might be listening to you and I right now, but they're not special. They're not indicatively different than you or me. They just answered the call. Any of us could do that, but I think we set aside so much of the power of what we look at as leadership, and we set it aside for those that have been chosen. It's not my turn; it's somebody else's turn. Well, when the leader of that party or when the boss recognizes me or acknowledges me, then I'll step up. For example, let's say you're inside of a larger organization and you see some things going wrong, but where do you go? You can't maybe necessarily fly it up the flagpole of the HR person. You can't necessarily go to the C-suite, but you could do something. And you can, not just talking about rumor mongering at the lunch hour. I'm talking about beginning to make changes from within that organization at a meaningful level. And we could do the same again, coming back to politics. You determined that being on the Fairbanks Assembly was less powerful for you. You had more influence and could do more by being on the outside of it. So that's what you chose to do. And that was, I don't know, 20 years ago or whatever. And you've been leading ever since when it comes to what should be done, what ought to be done, and the way things ought to be. You're not afraid to say it. You don't just talk about it, you engage in it and you host meaningful conversations. That is leadership. So again, you needn't be elected, but I want to say also, you could. I remember one day telling somebody I'm pretty close to that I want to be. I was thinking about, Don Young was still alive and still holding down the seat in Washington D.C. representing Alaska, and I said, I think if he runs again, I think I might challenge him, and not because I didn't respect Don Young or what he had done for Alaska, but because at some point it's not just his seat. It's not just who pick a senator that's been Nancy Pelosi from California. It's not her seat. Belongs to the people. I think I'll challenge him. And this person said to me very meaningfully and very from their heart, Chris, you're not a lawyer. You don't know anything about the law. You can't be. You
Right.
can't go back there and become a lawmaker. I was like,
He was
oh,
a
I
school
can
teacher.
too.
He was a school teacher in
Exactly.
the village. I mean, come on, But
Yeah.
Chris, you've nailed it though. See, that's part of the problem that I see, and I agree with you. We should all be looking for the leader within. But the problem is that most people's reaction is, oh, somebody else will take care of it. Oh, I'm not the right guy for that. Oh, I don't have the time. Oh, look at this. I'd missed my salmon fishing trip. Oh, there's always something that nobody, it'll always be somebody else's problem. And that's the thing. If you're going to grab yourself up by your own bootstraps, like when I decided to run for assembly, it wasn't because, I felt called because I felt like I was frustrated and things weren't getting done. And I thought maybe I can go in there and fix it. Now, it didn't work out quite that way, but I gave it a shot. I tried it, right? I mean, I did what I could
Yeah.
do. And then I figured out that I could do more damage or help more people, whichever side you're on, if I was outside of the situation looking in. But I mean, I tried. I didn't say, what's the old adage where it says about other, okay, I can't even remember the adage right this second, but if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? Right? That's the adage I was looking for. If it's not me, then who? If I'm not going to step up, then who is? Oh, that guy? Are you sure? Is he? Or is he asking in the same question that you are? We've got to step up at some point and take a leadership position in some of these things to try and fix them. We can't just throw our hands up in the air and walk away.
True. Yeah, and you're right. Jim Rohn's four whys come to my mind as you were scrambling for that other adage. But he said the four whys are when you face some challenge, you would say why, like why would I do this, and you follow it up with well, why not? Why not get involved? Why not say something if I see something? Why not be a leader? And then the next why is well, why not you? Like what? Why if something need be done, why not you? You can do this. And then the last question, the last why is why not now? Now is the time. For example, here in the Southern Peninsula, we're dealing with the South Peninsula Hospital. And for years, I'm telling you, 20 years ago, somebody took me to lunch and said, would you run for the assembly? We'll give you $5,000 for support and radio, everything, advertisement, $5,000. You run for the assembly and help us fix the hospital. I was like, no, thanks. But I've been paying attention for years and years and years. And then suddenly it became hyper focused. And now it's like, you know what? I'm going to lead from within me. And if anybody wants to follow, follow. But something's going to be done with South Peninsula Hospital, and this will not go unchanged on my watch. We will make the changes. And I'm imploring anybody that works there to change from within. Help us help you so we can have the best service possible. That's leading from within and honoring instincts that maybe you too have been ignoring for a while. You can do it.
Yeah, self-leadership in any organization you're in your local business, in your local church, in your local group. I mean, if nobody else will step up, then by God, step up. If not now, if not who, then if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? I mean, just do it right now. The 4 whys that Chris just talked about. 60 seconds, Chris Story. Give me a summation here.
Well, I think honestly, just think I was going to call this the leader inside you, but I was like, no, Michael's too soft-mark, so I'm going to go with the leader within because I like it from a couple levels. It's the leader within you, remember, but also within any organization. It's 2 things at the same time. You've got what it takes. You were born on purpose and with a purpose, and when you begin to live fully in that place in this time, you feel fantastic. You feel like you really can see the world, just like in The Matrix with Nemo.
You are the worst. Hold a minute just for a second, Chris. Folks, we got to go. Tomorrow's another day. I don't even remember who's on the show tomorrow. That's how agitated I am today. We'll see you tomorrow. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. Okay, Chris, final pitch here for you to be able to, are you doing anything more? You were talking about the hospital thing. Are you guys having any meetings or are you having any more shows on it or what's going on?
Yeah, definitely. Going to be promoting and promulgating the idea of this elected operating board concept. And so we'll be rallying people to come to the next service area board meeting, which I think is on the 14th of August. I'll have to double check that. Really hoping to have some good turnout there. I'm not getting any response whatsoever from the service area board relative to that draft resolution and emails that I've sent, and I know others have as well. And I just don't think they're engaging, and maybe don't want to engage necessarily over email. And I can respect that. I do feel it's good that we're able to reach them directly and not just count on a staff member to send it to a chair and a chair to send it to the board. So I like that. But yeah, so that's the next step. I mean, honestly, a couple big goals. One would be to remove any employed physicians or any employees from the operating board other than as an advisory role at South Peninsula Hospital Board, operating board. They can be advisors, but they can't be voting members. That's a big goal. The other goal would be it become an elected body. And I know you and I, sparred on that and debated that a little bit, but it truly is time to let the people of this service area decide the direction of the hospital, not just,
right.
I mean, for example, the service area board sent a representative to the operating board meeting the other day to announce that, on June 4th, they'd come to us and asked us for $175,000 out of their pref fund, and so we gave it to them. I mean, that's essentially what happens. It's not that they're not well intentioned, but we need people at the service area board, but we need people at the operating board who are also questioning, wait a minute, should we be spending $900,000 on a parking lot right now? Is that when in fact we're fundraising for an upgrade to our mammography equipment? We're fundraising for that and looking for charity and so forth for that, but we're putting up $1 million parking lot. I'm not sure where the priorities are there. So those are the kinds of things that and I feel like there's a vacuum of leadership. Ryan Smith, the CEO, had an opportunity to lead at that last board meeting, and when it came his turn, he said, I've got nothing to say. And the community had many people just poured their hearts out, and he said, I have nothing to say. And so we got a vacuum of leadership, but there are people that can step in, and that's why I'm saying within an organization, you know who they are, they know who they are, they can step up and lead right now and fill that vacuum.
Well, it's an interesting conversation. I'm not 100% convinced that a elected board would solve it, but I think it's good to have the conversation, if nothing else. I mean, if there, these problems, and it's good to see the community is engaged in it. And we'll see what happens as we go through. So, all right, Chris, today, 1 p.m. today, you'll be on the air. Thanks for coming out and being part of it with us. We appreciate your help this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Take care.
Appreciate it. Chris Story, the man from Homer, right here, giving us the lowdown, trying to bring us back on track. And maybe that's what we need, to be back on track a little bit. Because I'm Yeah. I mean, I'm agitated. I get agitated sometimes. And partially it's because I can see that this is the nature of government and has been forever. And I don't know how to fix it other than to keep pointing it out, I guess is where I'm at right now. All right, well, we got to go. Thank you guys for being part of it today. I appreciate you. On your way out the door, if you haven't hit the like button, would you do that? If you haven't shared it, would you do that? That's all I can ask right now. All right, you guys. His show he podcasts his show. He doesn't stream it. I think he podcasts it. So you'll have to go over to I Love Homer, Alaska to check it out. All right, we got to go. See you guys. Be kind. Love one another. Live well.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.